This project is one of the most exciting TIG projects I've been involved in my many years of working with LSC-funded programs. Set up a community called JusticeHub.tools, T-O-O-L-S, that is meant to be a portal to try to make it so that you don't have to be a tech person to get the communication going with tech people who can produce affordable and effective solutions to the issues we're all dealing with. And in their initial round of JusticeHub.tools, we tried to make sure there were at least 2 products that came out of it. One was for domestic violence victims to be able to more easily find out where the resources are, the help that they can get. The other is for internal administrative issues faced by LSC-funded programs, especially the difficulties in making sure that grant deliverables match the timeline for grant payments. And that's what this is about today. It's the Grants Management Dashboard. I'll make sure first, as a technology matter, that the feed is working. Can everyone see a screen that says 308 cases at the top and it's got a graph down below?
Got it.
Yep. Great, wonderful.
Yes.
Okay, and this is designed not to be, I want to say right up front, this is designed not to be a tool to report to funders, although we can see future evolution can make it do some of that, but this is meant to be more a tool for your frontline attorneys, your frontline paralegals to be able to have a better, more real-time advantage in knowing whether their number of cases they're handling, number of community activities they're doing, whatever they're doing matches the expectations that the grant that they're assigned to demands. It's meant to be user-friendly. The training curve so far has been about 5 minutes for most people. They understand how to use it and how to understand what it's telling them. So it works with almost any independent platform. I'm getting the text here. Let's see if there's a technical problem. Yeah, we did hit record. If you can see the screen with the feed, what this does is it tells people they're working on this project for the rural grant we have, and I'll explain that in a minute, how many cases we've done so far, and we're well above the number we should be for the first quarter of the grant year, and I'll explain how that works in a second. But it's platform independent as well. It can work with PICA, it can work with Legal Server, it can work with any database that can export the fields to a comma-separated value, spreadsheet in Excel or other spreadsheet, and that's very easy to do. And Dorothy Larson, our technology manager, or our grants manager, is here to answer questions about how easy it is to upload the data so that it works with this system. So first, though, I want to start out by giving you a video from Laura Livingston. She's a judge in Austin, Texas, and maybe you know the national leader, the godsend for the legal aid community. Laura is recently the past president of SCLAID, the ABA Standing Committee on Legal Aid and Indigent Defense. She's wonderful, and she regrets she couldn't be here today, but she left us an audio message to tell us what she thinks the system can do. So I'll start that now. And can everybody see Laura's photo on the screen?
Yep.
Okay. Here goes the video. Here goes the audio.
Hi, my name is Judge Laura Livingston. I am a trial court judge in Austin, Travis County, Texas. It's my pleasure to join the webinar this afternoon, and welcome to all of you that are participating. I want to also start by thanking Jeff Oreste and Ed Marks for showing me the demonstration at the most recent NLADA conference of the Justice Hub. I want to say that I was very, very impressed at what I saw during the demonstration, and I hope that those of you that are participating in the webinar will find it as useful as I did. I thought I would just offer just a couple of observations about what exciting things are happening with Justice Hub. First and foremost, I can see its immediate utility for those project directors that are supervising staff attorneys and managing attorneys as well. It is a very useful tool to find out how your staff lawyers are doing, what they're working on, where they need improvement, ways to evaluate the best use of resources for your particular program priorities, and you get a really up-to-date, real-time, almost snapshot of what's happening with your staff lawyer's caseload. And it has incredible utility, it seems to me, in that regard. But it also occurs to me that using it the way that Ed and his program folks are using it now, it seems to me that the next iteration of technology technology might be very useful in terms of grant application as well as grant reporting and overall grant management. I think kind of the next generation of this technology can be very useful for folks out in the field that are managing grants in a number of contexts, and might help streamline reporting and general grant management. So I'm very excited about plans to use this technology in that way. I'm also really interested in trying to figure out if this kind of technology can be used in other contexts. For example, in a court setting like my own, is this something that I could do to really understand better, track better, and plan better for how we might assist self-represented litigants? Are there data points and pieces of information that we can collect that would help us analyze how best to be responsive and how better to serve those that come to our courts that come here without a lawyer? So I think it's very exciting technology. I think the work that the Justice Hub folks are involved in is incredibly interesting, exciting, and revolutionary in a lot of ways. And so I commend these thoughts to all of you participating in the webinar so that you can help develop the next generation of an access to justice tool that will really be a game changer in the way that we provide services to the public. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you, Laura Livingston. Those of you who know Laura know that she's a real ally, strong leader for the whole national community. So let's get to the meat of it here. What is this and what is it not? This reads not in real time because we're concerned about the security issues of having to go through the technology steps of making it link to our database in real time. So what this does, and it meets the purposes very well, it uploads twice a month on the 1st and the 15th of the month. I'm looking at Dorothy to make sure that's correct. She says that's correct. And so we found that's close enough for our purposes to make sure that all the frontline attorneys and paralegals assigned to whatever grant they're assigned to can get a real picture of where things stand. Now, this is a manager's view that you're looking at. So this view will let me see all the people assigned to the grant, no matter who they are. And this is our rural grant we get through the Access to Justice Commission in New Mexico. So we know, for example, that we're supposed to have roughly 350 cases for the entire year for this grant, and this is just the first quarter's worth from July 1st to September 30th. We're already working on 308 cases in the pipeline, so it gives me great confidence. We won't be running around with chickens with our heads cut off toward the end of the grant year saying we don't have enough cases. More than enough. At a glance, if I called this up and it said that there were only 20 cases or only 100 cases, then we'd know we need to get something readjusted and reassigned to make sure that the volume was going to meet the need that it's going to meet. The other thing I like as a manager, you can see at a glance, it tells me which cases are taking up more than the normal number of hours. Like here's a case that's approaching 30 hours. Here's a case that's already gone up to 35 or 36 hours, and I can hover over it, and it will tell me, it will take me to the case number in my database. Let me get it to work there. Anyway, when you hover over it, it takes you to the number that, if you're logged in behind our firewall, I can then go straight to the case and see what's happening with that. Is it something that's going to need a bigger conversation with the advocate so that we know we need a co-counsel team to pull together? Do we need something else to make sure that the case is being handled efficiently and not ballooning into more hours or more complexities than the advocate alone can handle? So the reason we've done it this way is you can't see anything in this system that is not anonymous. You can't tell from that number who the client is. You can't tell from any of the data that you see on these screens who the client is. So that took away a lot of security concerns right off the bat. So, if the Russians want to hack in and join our webinar today, that's fine because they won't learn anything that violates any confidential information from any client or any case. But if you're logged into your own system, whether you're using Legal Server, PICA, whatever you're using, you can instantly jump to that case and then have a conversation with the advocate. Okay, what's going on with this? What's happening with this? And make sure you're getting the best conclusion possible. But you also can drill down to just individual advocates. I'll show you that as well. This is what the individual advocates, based on their code number, would see if they were joining it in. So I picked an advocate here who's assigned to our domestic violence helpline project. So this tells me a number of things. Her project has deliverables for cases of 225 for the year. So already in the first quarter, we're 136 in the pipeline. So that, again, gives me great confidence we're going to meet or exceed the goals. It also, again, tells me which cases are taking more than the usual amount of time, because we expect most protection order cases, which is the focus of this grant, to have 10 hours or less. And you can see from this scale that that's where most of them fall. And then the ones that are just an hour or less are usually the advice-only calls, where somebody might not be a domestic violence victim, but they want to know their rights if they see trouble coming. So this, as a manager, gives me great confidence. And as a staff attorney assigned to this, it should give her great confidence that she's right on track to meet her deliverables. She doesn't have to wait for somebody in central administration to say, hey, you got too few or too many. She doesn't have to wait for somebody to structure a complex data query. You don't have to be a data geek to use this. All you have to know is your ID number in our system, whatever filters or factors you want to know. Like, for example, if she wanted to know how many have been closed by contested court hearings or negotiated settlements, she can filter it that way. And we see that she's closed 20 in the first quarter already by negotiated settlements, and she's gone to court with uncontested decisions in 24, and she has, well, I guess with 4. There's 4 cases that are uncontested, and then contested court decisions. So far this quarter, there have been 12. So this gives them the data that we think they need to know to match what the grants are expecting them to do. And it also tells us whether somebody is struggling to meet the data goals or not. Let me get back to the original. So when I look at her entire caseload, it also tells me how many are closed and how many are open. So you can do it by number of hours descending. This is in order of when the cases were open, but you also can do it by number of hours descending, with the biggest one, the first one you see. And then it goes down from there. You get an idea, too, of case turnover, whether the cases are just sitting there. If all these turned up dark blue, that they're still open, then I have some concern about whether or not there's something make it difficult to get some of these cases closed out. But it looks like a good mix here. And so the main thing it does is takes away this phenomenon that we all know about called, the grant fairies somehow take care of our deliverables. We all know that people wait until they get that panicked email from the central administrator saying, we've only got 2 months to go on this grant, we're 4 months behind in the cases. Or also it gives you at least a red flag and a warning to know whether or not you're accelerating the work too much, that you're spending out a 1-year grant and only 6 months worth of activity. People have asked, that we've showed this too, they've asked, what about the data fields? Is there magic in which data fields you can select? There is no magic to that. We picked a set of data that made sense to us, and these filters over on the left-hand side are what I'm talking about. You can filter it by problem type. You can filter it by the case status as open, closed. You can filter it by the funding source. You can filter it by the type of activity you're doing, whether it's a client meeting or a court hearing, whatever it is. But you can basically, anything your data system can produce, whatever you're using, PICA or legal server, you can make it feed into whatever you choose, the data set that makes most sense to you and your staff. And those of you who do grant reporting will recognize right away that this is not a complete set of data that will be adequate to do all the funder reports, but that's not what it was designed for. It's designed to make sure that the staff understands that we're just like private law firms. If we commit to a certain number of cases over a certain number of months for a grant, we have to make sure we're getting there and we're doing that. And this gives them a tool at their disposal that they can look at it once a week, twice a day, once a month, whatever makes sense to make sure that they're on track. Already we're seeing good news from this. And I'm turning again to Dorothy Larson, our grants manager. But my understanding is that for the rural grant that we've just showed as an example a few minutes ago, we've had trouble with that over the years, especially with turnover in our rural offices. We've had trouble meeting the number of cases. And so far now, with the staff having access to see this in real time themselves, it looks like we're more on track than we've ever been for this grant. Is that correct, Dorothy?
Yeah, in fact, I think we're more on track for all of our grants. actually.
Yeah, and that's woohoo. That's I'm doing the happy dance because you know that's just it's a problem that drives us all crazy because we know the data is there to tell us when things are going too fast or too slow. We just haven't had a format before that our staff can be partners in seeing that themselves and take more responsibility for knowing whether or not they have to make an adjustment in their workload. Because we all know what happens if we send out that email that says this grant is falling behind and somebody has to drop everything to pick up new cases and some other grant ends up suffering. It's like a seesaw battle to meet the deliverable balance correctly before the end of the year. It drives me crazy. I'm sure it's vexing for many of you as well. The system is also designed to look at non-case data. And what this does, it does a number of things. By these activity codes, we all know here what they are in our program. They'd be different for your program, but the result will be the same. Like we know at a glance that if she was billing time to a grant that did not allow vacation time, we know at a glance that this will tell us that that's wrong because we've had that problem too, that certain grants allow vacation time billing and certain grants don't. And this tells us just by looking at it whether or not she's incorrectly billed, and we can fix it early instead of at the end of the year when it's harder to deal with. I think, Dorothy, that's been a big advantage too. You always see less corrective activity has to happen every month. Dorothy used to send out a monthly, she still does, but monthly error report spreadsheet. I think the errors are getting fewer.
In fact, I'm thinking of changing the upload to correspond with when timesheets are due so people can do some simple checks themselves so that we don't have to send out emails and have people unlock their timesheets. It's all very time-consuming, so if we can take care of it before all that's necessary. So I think that would be a good plan for us. I haven't really talked to you about doing that, Ed, but I'd like to start doing that.
Absolutely. And this is written in a software called R, just the letter R is what it is, and it's a pretty standard format for doing this kind of data analysis. But what I like about it is more, you know, what you see is what you get. It's no complexity. It's no, you don't have to know Boolean connectors. You don't have to know the complex data query structures. Anybody can do this. I haven't found anybody yet that with a little bit of time on the order of 5 to 10 to 15 minutes tops, they can understand how to use this and they can get access to their own data. I want to take a breath right there because, you know, sometimes the webinars are great, but sometimes it's like I feel like I'm talking to an empty room. So I'll make sure I have time for whatever questions that come up so far.
So Ed, this is Linda Seeley. Are there some? Is there any other functionality that you think would be helpful to this particular software program that maybe could be added in the future? Absolutely. What I'm amazed is the cheap development cost that it took to get this going. It was only about $10,000 to get it from concept to working. And all credit to Jeff Reichman, who is the head of JanuaryAdvisors.com, which is the team that developed this. And his staff has just been great, working with Christy Leos, who's on the call today, and Jeff Oresti from the Internet Bar Organization, who are partners in this big project for setting up JusticeHub.tools. And you know, from my understanding, what we've seen so far, if we can explain in plain language to Jeff Reichman and his team what it is we want to know, what it is we want to do, he can make it expand as far as we want to. But for this first iteration, our main goal was to keep it simple because we didn't want people to have their eyes rolling back in their head saying they did not know how to do the data query or the data structure that is needed for the onboard reporting systems we already have in most of our PICA or legal server or similar case management systems. So we're trying to keep it simple to invite user participation. Again, the goal is not to be a sophisticated grant reporting system, although it certainly could evolve to that. But the goal at this point of the game was to make sure that our staff, particularly our attorneys and our case handling paralegals, were more invested and involved in keeping on top of where we stood at the deliverables, not just waiting to the end of the grant year, but making sure month by month we were on track.
So Ed, oh, sorry. Okay,
go ahead.
It looks like Alex Clark has a question. Did you see it, or do you want me to read it out to you?
After you read it.
Okay, so his question was, how is this licensed? If under a FLOSS license of some kind, where can I download the source code?
Well, Jeff Reichman, I'm not sure if Jeff is on with this, but we can get you an answer to that by the end of the day. But my understanding is, partly because it was funded by TIG, that this is available to anybody who's an LSC funded program for absolutely free. And then you can either do what we're doing, which is working with January advisors to host it, and we upload the data to their system. Or if you want to host it yourself, then I think R is relatively cheap to license. You need an iteration of R software if you want it on your own server. But that's a good question about the licensing that I'd have to get back to you.
I would just add to that if you become a member of JusticeHub.tools, you can find a bit of the source code on GitHub. So if you are willing, to go the extra mile and install things, then you could go that route as well.
But I'm just amazed at how useful this has been, because again, it's not just about meeting the deliverables, it's about seeing which cases are struggling, which cases are in, which attorneys or groups of attorneys, or which projects may be in trouble. Because if you're the manager's view, you can see everybody's data at once. We deliberately didn't want to do that for the individual staff people, because we didn't want this to become a scorecard. We want it to be a positive mentoring coaching tool, but not a scorecard. But what this does for the managers immediately is it lets those high-hour cases stick out like a sore thumb, so they can immediately say, not, what are you doing? You're taking too much time, but what can we do to help? Can we bring in a pro bono co-counsel? Can we bring in a staff co-counsel? Can we get you some research help from our student groups? Can we do whatever it takes to corral the ridiculous theatrics that the opposing party is doing to run out the time? It gives us a much more powerful tool to see these cases that balloon to 50, 100 hours in the early stages. Before they get to that point, we can find ways to get a better result for our client with less investment of attorney time. Any other immediate questions? And I'll move on to a few other examples of what it does.
Ed, this is from Hawaii. It's one of our staff. Yeah, I have a follow-up question about, the source code. Can you hear me okay?
There's a bit of an echo, but we can hear you.
Okay. So with the source code, how do we refresh the data? Do we have to do that manually, or is it built in the code?
Right now, I'm going to let Dorothy explain how easy it is to do that. You're talking about the data that gets uploaded from our case management system? Is that what we're discussing?
Yes.
Great. Dorothy can talk about how easy it is to do it. All you have to do is take the data fields that your program has selected. Your program can customize this in any way you see fit, and then you take that data and put it into a spreadsheet format that delivers CSV results, comma separated values, which is a very basic spreadsheet format that certainly Excel can do. And then you just point and click to Dropbox location, and the system takes over from there. I think you got down to the science, so it takes, what, 5 or 10 minutes a month?
About 5 minutes, and you could probably have it automated. You could probably run scripts, and you could do it much more frequently if you wanted the data to be more current. But I just have a command that I run, and then I just drop the files in Dropbox, and by the next day the data are there.
Yeah, it's just a point and click. It's very easy. It takes a matter of minutes. Once you do it the first setup, it takes a matter of minutes. And we made this choice deliberately. We could have set it up so that it pulled into our database and linked in real time, but we were just so concerned about the extra cost that would generate for data security. This is the way to have our cake and eat it too, to have the data close enough in real time to meet the purpose that we've designed it for. But at the same time, we don't have to worry if somebody hacks it. Somebody could download the entire spreadsheet that Dorothy sends to the Dropbox location. It wouldn't matter because there's no information in there that gives them any clue what case we were talking about or what client we were talking about. There's no way they can discern from any of this data any confidential information at all. Great. Well, I also want to talk about...
Ed, this is Glenn. Can you tell us which actual fields you're uploading, and will somebody have to translate their field names for your field names?
Yes, that's part of the original setup, and we're guessing. I mean, for folks who use PICA, we could just send you a template, and it'd probably be about 5 minutes worth of work. If Legal Server has a lot of different file names, and it start from scratch, we're guessing it would take about $2,000 to $3,000 worth of time for Jeff and his team.
at JanuaryAdvisors.com. It'd be about $2,000 to $3,000 worth of customization costs if you had something that needs that kind of individual mapping attention. That's the filters we're using, we're uploading are the user IDs. Every attorney in our system has their own ID number that links to their data, and they all know what that is. And again, that may strike somebody as a little bit clunky. Why not just use their plain names? We just didn't want to have to deal with the security issues that would raise, was the main concern. Then the case date range is another filter. Then the category, like the activity codes to say, was it a court hearing, was it a client meeting, was it a phone call, was it a negotiation? All those are in there. And then the funding type just means the grant number that is assigned to each of our grants. The status means, is the case open, closed, is it got pro bono co-counsel, is it staff, is it pro bono completely, those kinds of differences. The problem codes just uses the LSC problem code numbering system. Then the closing code uses the LSC closing codes. Is it negotiated settlement, is it administrative hearing, is it court case, whatever it is. We decided by trial and error, by getting some early iterations in front of our staff, that this was the data that most seemed to be most useful to getting somebody more feeling of control of their own caseload, whether they were on track or not. For your program, it might be a different mix, but I don't know of any technical reason why if you want to upload every single data field you've got in your case management system, I don't know why it wouldn't work. I think that would make it more user unfriendly. But it's basically, it's up to you what set of data makes the most sense to you and your staff. Glenn, did that answer the question?
It did. Thanks, Ed.
Great. And so another scenario, many of you got the handout we sent in advance of this webinar. So this also shows that by glancing at the graph and putting it in our order, again, it shows the mix of cases. This graph, I would expect this to be the mix I would see for this project because so much of it is telephone advice. So that's why there's so many cases that took so few time. But if it's more of a litigation-intensive case, I saw a graph like this, then I would want to have a conversation to find out what's going on, why there's so few cases getting meat on the bone, because litigation, more intensive litigation practice would show a different mix of cases that you'd expect to be 10, 20, 30 hours is more of a typical time investment in a case rather than what you see here. What we don't want to do is create a culture of this is a scorecard, or that somebody can say, they're racing through the deliverables to finish and then not have to worry about it for the rest of the year. But this is why we want the managers to have the view as well as the staff. Let me just try to put one more project in here to show you. So I'll put our main domestic violence litigation funding in there. Funding code 45, I'll take the user ID out so we have everybody working on that project involved. You see how quick it switches. So this tells me right now that here we are at the end of the first quarter of the grant year, because the state fiscal year starts July 1st. This is July 1st to September 30th. There are already 431 cases worked on under this grant across 30 advocates. That tells me we've got the right balance, because that's how many people across the state handle these types of cases. And also the right number of cases in the pipeline, because the whole deliverable for that entire year is 880 cases. So we're having 431 at the first quarter. This lets me sleep easy at night. It's just that easy to switch to grant sources, individual staff within those grant sources, whatever you need to do. It's just that easy. You can also switch between the view that tells you only the cases that are open. So that gives me a look at just cases that are currently open versus how many are closed. And this is still a project or a product that's evolving and work in progress. That's what I like about it. It's just easy as pie to work with these guys at January Advisors to say we wish it would do this or that, and they deliver. So Evora Thomas from LSC is on. She's our program officer. I think, Evora, you'll be very happy to see the results we're going to show for our GAR report this year, because it's much more in line with where we wish we were. last year. We had a tough year last year and came in below the target numbers, but now we are going to be much closer to right on target where we need to be. I think a big piece of that was because the staff feels like they have more information flowing, they have more investment in what they're doing.
Well, I can tell you that this is something that has great ability for all of the grantees that I work with. I'm going to be encouraging them to at least review this webinar if they're not online currently, to look at adaptation, because the more diversified funding sources become, managing those projects becomes an increasing problem, and this is certainly a wonderful opportunity, both in terms of the grant management itself and also from the standpoint of the legal work management. So I'm just very excited about it and happy to be able to review it today.
There's a revenue aspect to this as well for those of us who have to watch the budget. There's a revenue aspect that it's not just about the number of cases, but you can translate this data easily into whether the billing is on target, because so many of these fee-for-service grants that we have to deal with now, we know that we can't carry over unless we negotiate revision to the grant. Oftentimes it's a use it or lose it kind of phenomenon. And so we're expecting that this will help us more early in the process understand which grants are in danger of not being fully billed out. And I'm guessing just conservatively, after we do our year-end reporting for grants that have a calendar year instead of a fiscal year that starts in the summer, we're going to see this grant cycle that ends in December. We're going to see much less money left on the table than we've ever seen before. It's not that we've left an inordinate amount of money on the table before, but we've had to stress the staff out. Usually in November and December, you know, we have staff like hamsters in a wheel running around trying to get caught up with what's behind. And sometimes that's stressful for the staff and stressful for other cases that have to get deferred until the grant year is caught up. And I just have great confidence in this tool. We're going to see much less of that than we've seen in the past.
Ed, this is Glenn again. Do you think it would also work in the other way? Because so many times at least to me, it looks like our programs don't actually know how much they're spending on a grant. They'll bid on a grant and actually are spending more on it than what the grant money that they're bringing in. Do you think this will give them an opportunity to, when you go out and rebid a grant, to know what your actual cost has been on it in case you aren't, in case the grant's not enough for what you're promising?
Amen to that. And it'll also help us balance out, like domestic violence, the example we got on the screen right now. It'll let us balance out between all the sources that are available to fund domestic violence cases. It's like, if we know that we can only bill 880 cases to this grant, we're already 431 after the first quarter, then it lets us know we can start shifting earlier in the process some of the other grants that also allow us to cover domestic violence cases, so we have a better balance at the end of the year.
Thanks, Ed.
Well, I mean, that's the meat of it. And what we want to do, if you haven't, some of you have taken advantage of this already. If you haven't, email Dorothy Larson. I'll put her email address out. It's dorothyl@nmlegalaid.org. She'll send you a login password. You can see our system, and it will be our system in real time, because, like I said, there's nothing confidential about any of this data. We've gone through that thoroughly to make sure that there's no way anybody could reverse engineer anything or get access to any confidential data at all. So we're happy to have you look at it not as a demo prototype, but as a system we're actually using. We welcome your feedback about what additional data would make sense, or what recombinations or reorganizing and how this displays the results would make sense, because we want it to be as easy and as inviting and welcoming to use as possible.
Well, thanks, Ed. This has been very helpful.
But, I want to put in a plug, too, for the Justice Hub process, because by doing this through Justice Hub, we got access to programmers we never would have had access to if we were just looking locally in New Mexico. And it was just, once we got in connection with the right people that knew what we were trying to do, it was easy and very successful to get this kind of result.
So Christy, can you tell everybody about Justice Hub again in case they're interested real quick, how to access it?
Sure. So if you go to JusticeHub.tools and register in the upper right-hand corner, it's very easy. All you have to do is fill out a short profile, and you'll find this project along with a few others that are currently underway. And you can also create a new one, post topics, and explore who current members are. And so in the next few months, we'll be sending out more newsletters and content. But yeah.
And again, what I can say about the grants management dashboard that was produced by Justice Hub, I think it was a cheaper, better, more effective result than we'd ever gotten on our own. And I just hope that that's where it leads for other issues as well, whether it's client services or internal administrative issues that you're trying to deal with, like this particular product is dealing with. I just think that the more that we get it's kind of cheap, quick, because I think, Christy, I'm trying to remember from the time we worked with, first contacted Jeff Reitman to the time this was up and running was about 6 months, give or take. I think it didn't take very long at all. Was that basically what the right timeline was?
Yes, it was an incredibly short timeline.
So I think there's a whole brave new world opening up out there that we don't have to be tech people anymore to just be able to tell the tech people what we're trying to do, and then we get a result like this for $10,000. I'm not sneezing at, but very, very cheap. Well, again, I thank you. I know that sometimes in a webinar it's hard to absorb all the information, but I invite each of you to try it yourself and email Dorothy if you don't have the password to log in already. Dorothy L at nmlegal.org. She'll send you the login credentials. Play around with it. You can tell us what you like, what you don't like, and we can all try to get this to work better together.
Thanks, Ed.
Great.